Think outside the box, if you will. I mean, go there, go off campus. Let's think this through. And sure enough, that's where the Mustang was born. When it finally hit, it took the country by storm.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Cars in Context. I'm your host, John Clor. You know, this is the Motor City, and this is the show where we put cars into the context of your everyday life. You know, we try to impart some knowledge and experience to you, but we will make no apologies for our decidedly Detroit perspective. For today's show, you know, I'm really not sure what the heck I could possibly talk about. What would our topic be? I am wearing a garage shirt, a service station shirt, so maybe that might give you a clue. I'm not sure. So why don't you start thinking right now, what could Cars in Context possibly be talking about today? But before we get into that, let's introduce our special guest, Joe Babiasz. Joe, welcome back to Cars in Context. Thanks for coming by. You know, you can read Joe's stuff on the automotivetraveler.com. He's our favorite automotive expert and historian. You know, Joe, we've been looking back on the YouTube channel at Cars in Context TV. Your show on the Packard plant has got several thousand views now.
Yeah, about 3,500 at this point.
Unbelievable.
Yes.
Well,
yeah,
you know,
very happy with that.
I really don't want to say, I really don't know what the topic, I don't want to tell the folks at home what this topic might be. I don't know if they could guess from my shirt or not. But before we get into that, let's find out what's happening in the news.
Okay, let's do it.
Well, you know, there's a new company. It's called Yoasi. And
What's it called?
Yoasi.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And they make batteries, lithium-ion batteries. And Mitsubishi has halted production now of their new Outlander that runs on these lithium-ion batteries. They also have all of their electric cars over there. And they're saying that they're having problems with this company's batteries. They're actually, while they're using them, melting. I'm melting. It's like the witch in the.
Not a good sign.
It's really, and actually one of them now in use had caught fire, and it was traced back. They said this is just strictly the cause of the battery. So, during some testing, the supplier said, you know what we're going to have to do? We're going to have to pull these off. And Mitsubishi says, no more batteries from you guys. And they've traced it. This is the same battery company that was making batteries for Boeing's Dreamliner.
Which had some battery problems. Certainly.
Here's the other bad news. They also did sales to Honda's electrified vehicles.
Oh, boy.
So, folks, it now has, Yoasi now has international scrutiny over their batteries. So if you have one of these Yoasi batteries in your device or in your Honda or in your Boeing Dreamliner,
You might want to get it checked out.
Right. Joe, why don't you give us a headline?
Okay, Cadillac announces the ELR price.
Oh, the ELR.
ELR,
Yeah.
electric vehicle.
Yeah.
You know, automakers.
ELO was Electric Light Orchestra. ELR is the new Cadillac.
New Cadillac, and the automakers typically lose money in every electric vehicle they produce,
Well, because they're
including
trying
the
to sell.
Volt.
Oh, they're going to try to sell them for $35,000. A lot more technology than $35,000.
That's true. I guess somebody at GM decided, you know what, maybe we don't want to lose money on every car, so they priced the Cadillac ELR at $77,000.
Well,
More than double the price of the Volt.
It's a Cadillac.
It's a Cadillac Volt. It's
Okay,
a Cadillac with Volt
it's
architecture.
Okay, but it's still, it's going to be luxury, right?
It will be luxury. It'll be along the lines of the BMW i8 and the Infiniti LE. It's a very high-end car. GM thinks there'll be a niche market, certainly, but a market for this. But I think, if in fact it sells well, this could be the first electric car that actually makes money for the manufacturer.
Well,
It remains to be seen, but we'll find out.
The high-end buyers, usually the ones are the early adopters. They buy the new technology anyway, so we'll see if maybe we can cut into that Tesla sales.
Tesla, that's right.
Yeah, okay. I've got one too. We're going to add some fuel to the fire. Remember Fisker?
Yes.
Talk about fires and batteries that melt. This car company's now been defunct. It went bankrupt months ago, and Bloomberg, the news service, reported that the actual manufacturing costs, they finally are coming clean about their costs. It says that every Fisker that they made was actually cost the company $600,000.
$660,000 to be accurate.
$660,000. That's crazy, isn't it?
That's
And they only made, 2,500 cars? So can you imagine why they went bankrupt? Duh. Now, apparently, they were still, even though this number was available to some of the auditors, they were still getting government subsidies, Joe.
After they were bankrupt.
Yeah, and which violated the terms of their contract. But there's still there's no red flags, and the Department of Energy never said anything, knowing full well what the full costs were. And even worse, Fisker continued to get the government money after it declared bankruptcy. They still were cashing the checks. So I know now you probably will be hearing about congressional hearings, and guess who they're going to call to the stand?
Let me guess, Mr. Fisker.
Yeah, Henrik Fisker is going to show up.
The
himself.
sad part is they're going through congressional hearings, and
Yeah, I
nothing
mean,
usually gets done in those anyhow.
It's just a waste of time. Yeah, it's moving the deck chairs around on the Titanic.
Exactly.
Yeah. Why don't you give us another one, Joe?
Okay, this is a good one. I like this. GM's building electric motors in the U.S.
Electric motors?
Electric motors.
No, in
the
China.
electric. Well, mostly they're typically made in China.
Yeah,
Almost
that's
everything's
where
made in
don't
China.
they buy them in China?
They were, but now GM wants to control their EV parts,
Well,
wants to control the quality.
Sure.
And so they started building their own electric motors in a plant in Baltimore. That might have been an old Saturn plant.
Oh,
Possibly.
yeah.
There was a Saturn plant
Yes.
in Baltimore. GM used some special government funding to help pilot production of the EV motors in the U.S.
Bring it on, baby.
Sadly, they're going to go into the new Spark EV, which is still made in Korea.
Yeah.
So maybe we can get General Motors to build the car in the U.S. at the same plant
But even
that
so,
they build the batteries at.
that's true. But even so, understand that when you buy a car, even from a domestic maker that's built overseas, the profits come here.
Agreed.
Bottom line.
Agreed.
Okay, now I got one for you. Now,
What's that?
we all talk about cars on the show. We talk about innovative ideas. There's been a lot of startups, Fisker, and everybody wants to build a unique car. This one will just drive you crazy. This one is a new car that's coming out called the Elio. Elio. It's a three-wheeled car. I got a picture of it here.
Oh, wow.
Well, this company said that they're going to have this two-seater. It's a three-wheeler. They claim, Joe, this car will get 84 miles highway, 49 city. And talk about former GM plants. This one's going to be built at GM's old Shreveport,
That was a
Louisiana
truck
plant.
at
Remember
one
the truck
time.
plant?
Sure.
They're going to price this under $7,000, about $6,800, and you can go traditional financing, which means you get a car loan. Or check this out: if you get the Elio gas card, all right, you go to the gas station, and every time you buy gas, $10, $20, $30, it charges another $10, $20, $30 and makes your car payment for you each time you buy gas. So you put a little bit on your credit card every month, and that's how you make your Elio car payment.
So is it officially a car or a motorcycle? Because there's some motorcycles out that look similar to that
Sure
without the body.
It's certified as a car, much like the Assetto, the BMW Assetto. There's been a lot of three-wheelers that were produced. In about a year, they're going to come out with this thing. And you can reserve yours for about $100. You just go to the Elio website, put your money down, you buy your own three-wheeler. So,
deal.
if you remember your big wheels, this is even bigger wheels for you. So, folks, we're going to come back, and we're going to figure out what could we possibly bring to you of value, and what kind of subject could we talk about today? And I know the shirt's a giveaway, but you start thinking about
Haven't a
that,
clue.
and when we get back, I bet you're going to know what it is. We'll see you right after this. Hi, and welcome back to Cars in Context. I'm your host, John Clor. Today we didn't give you the topic of the day at the top of the show. We wanted you to try to guess. I know a lot of you people are saying, wait a minute, John doesn't usually wear a garage shirt, so maybe it's got something to do with that. Is there any other possible hint that could possibly get what we're talking about today, Joe?
The sushi recipe, I have
No,
idea.
I think what you folks need to understand is every once in a while we'll bring in a prop. You used to go to show and tell. I know you did. So here is our topic. When we first started Cars in Context way back when, one of our first shows was with Joe Babiasz, and the title was Let's Talk Tires. Well, that show is lost in the archives. We don't have that show to show you. It's not on our YouTube channel. So we wanted to do Let's Talk Tires 2, the sequel, and this time the sequel will be as good as the original.
If not better.
If not better. Because I brought in this relic.
And it is a relic.
I know it is. So folks, this is the time where you can finally take all the gobbledygook out of the people that talk tires to you. When you need to understand quite a bit about your tire, because it's probably one of the most neglected things on your car, and you don't even know it. Possibly, this is one of the reasons why you'll be calling AAA to come get you somewhere, and it really pays a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense for you to pay attention to your tires, because they do kind of talk to us if we just take a look at them every once in a while.
absolutely
So
right.
Joe's going to walk us through a little bit about tires, what they mean when people talk tires, and what all those numbers and gobbledygook stuff. And then we're going to show you a couple of things that really can tell you how you can save some money and some aggravation by paying attention. Joe, first of all, when we talk tires, the problem I think most people have is, they come in all different shapes and sizes, and they're so different for every application that there's no way one person, nobody out there in TV land could possibly grasp this in one show of Cars in Context. Isn't that true?
Yeah, you're right, but there's some basic things that the vehicle owner can do, and that most importantly, look at your owner's manual, which is going to tell you some good information on your tires, the type of tires you need, the size of the tire that you need.
Yeah. So pretty much, Joe, would you say with a car that the tire that came on your car is the one the factory picked?
That's the one that the factories determined is the best size for that car to give it optimal mileage and safety.
So right off the top, you can look in your owner's manual, but when the factory gave you that tire, they're kind of saying this is what you should be replacing it with, this size.
Exactly.
Now give us just a little primer there on sizes, because folks, back in the day, the smaller cars had 13-inch rims, which means the rim is the wheel, the steel or metal part, aluminum, whatever, alloy, and then the rubber part, the black part, is the tire. And if the rim is 13 inches, the tire would be sold as a 13-inch tire, even though there's no measurement here that would be anywhere near 13 inches. Same as we got into later 70s, 14 inches were pretty common. As we got later on into the 80s, 15 inches were pretty much the common tire. And then larger cars had 16 inches, and now 17 inches are for bigger tires. Now even small cars like a Fiesta would have a 17-inch rim. 18 inches are pretty much the norm. And for you guys with the dubs and the SUVs, you got 20s, 22s on your Edge. You got chromes on your, you got 30s, 32s. We saw a car at the Village Fest car show with 40-somethings. So really, when we talk that first side, the inch is really the dimension of the width of the rim, the diameter of the rim.
Of the diameter of the rim.
So
of the
this
wheel
measurement
itself.
across.
Exactly.
So we're talking 13, 14, 15, it's that measurement.
Exactly.
Okay. So what are the advantages of, say, a 17-inch rim over a 13-inch rim?
Well, I mean, first of all, a longer or taller tire will last a little longer because there's more surface. But you don't want to put something that's not designed for your car. If your car came designed for a 14-inch tire, you should put a 14-inch tire. You shouldn't really upgrade it to a 15 or 16 or 17. You can, but it's not necessarily going to be the right thing. It might not handle as well.
Yeah.
Could potentially be a safety issue. So again, I go back to the owner's manual for a couple of important things. First of all, the tire size, or there's also a tire label on the door of the car. That's really most important because that also tells your tire pressure, which is of the utmost importance. And again, back in the owner's manual, it's also going to tell you when you should rotate your tires. Right. Can't stress enough, rotate your tires on a regular basis. They're going to last you longer. But past that, when you're going to buy your tires, buy your first set of tires, you can be an educated consumer by doing a little bit of reading on the internet. Yep. There's a tremendous amount of information on these tires. On this old tire, this tire happens to be it was made in 1998. We can tell that by a little code that's on here, a 3-digit code. As an example, in the year 2000, they changed these codes to a 4-digit. So this was easy for me to tell it was done. This tire was made earlier than 2000.
So it's a code reader. You're like reading palms.
Yep. So there's a lot of information on the tire.
Here's one of the things that I always look for on any tire, no matter where I buy a tire and what I buy, is the country of origin. Why? Because nowadays, folks, our country has been flooded with a lot of cheap imported tires, especially from China. They're not worth really the rubber they're stamped out of. And I always look for this thing that says Made in USA. Don't be fooled by a brand that you're familiar with, because some of our even American brands are outsourcing their tires. So that has that on it. It'll have generally the size. But Joe, there's a formula for how those tires are the tire speak, if you will. And you brought a little graphic and it shows how they, a B70 something 70. Right. It has aspect ratio and all these other things. Why don't we take a look at that slide and try to walk us through?
Yeah, there's a slide you'll notice up top. That was, I think it's a 215 by 65 R15. Right. So the P in it means passenger. It's for a passenger car.
Yeah,
it's just for an everyday car. It's not.
Come on, folks, you can get P, right?
If it was for a light truck, it would say LT. So, and the 215, well, that's how many millimeters wide the tire is, 215 millimeters wide. Right. R means it's a radial a radial tire. All right. 65 that's an interesting thing. It's the height aspect ratio to the width. 65. The height is 65% of the width. It's a 15-inch. It goes on a 15-inch wheel. Yeah. Okay. And so those are your basic things, which would tell you, gee, this is the same size tire that I have on my car, so that's the tire I want to get for my car. Right. But more importantly, or as importantly, there's a few things to look at, and there's a uniform tire quality grading that every tire has to have on it. and it rates tread wear, traction, and temperature.
Okay.
And for tread wear, the lowest number is 100, and it can just go up to 400, 500, 600, and so on. And the higher the number, the longer the tire will last.
But there's a couple of things to consider, Joe. Let's think about that for a second. The tread wear, you don't necessarily need to buy the tire that has the longest tread wear life. You want a tire that suits your needs. Let's say you've got 180,000 miles in your car, you're going to sell it next year, but you need new tires. You wouldn't try to buy a tread wear, 80, 90,000 mile tread wear, 70,000. You could buy a less expensive tire because you're not going to keep it that long. The second thing is, isn't it true that the longer tread wears are generally harder compound tires? The softer, the racer style, those real soft tires don't last as long as the hard compound. So there's a trade-off between tread wear and ride comfort and quietness. Is that?
You know, you're right. There is a trade-off, and it's really good to what you mentioned about, I'm going to sell my car in a year or two, or I've got 180,000 miles on it. You're going to be able to go into your tire store. An educated consumer can go in their tire store and say, look, this is what I want. I don't want you to sell me what you have the most of behind the
Or what
the
you're
counter.
promoting this month.
Yeah, I want to buy a tire at a price point and a value that's best for this particular car at this particular time. And knowing this uniform tire quality grading, which breaks down your tread wear, traction, and temperature, will typically go along the lines of price point. The lower quality ones will be a lower price point, but that might be all you need for right now.
Sure.
So there's a lot of good information on it.
So I think, folks, we'll take this, if we took a look at this. So let's recap for you. Now, that's not magic. We're not doing gobbledygook here. When you're talking about this tire is a P, which means the passenger tire, a 195. That's when he talks about tread width. That's the width of between the edges of the tread, the part that's sitting and riding on the road when you're rolling along. That's the tread. The 70 is the aspect ratio. The series 70 is how much the width you have between the rim and the bottom of the tread. A real low 45, you get real low, they're having very little rubber between you and the road and the rim. And a higher ratio, 70 is pretty much the tallest these days, 78. Those are 85s. Those are higher tires off the ground, depending on your need. And this is an R, radial, 14, meaning the inches of the rim. So it's not magical gobbledygook tire stuff. You just look at those numbers and remember what each one of those series means, the P, the 195, or one, as in Joe's tire. It's so simple to get, once you visually see them in your mind, and you go to the store and you say, well, this was on my car, now do I want to change? Do I want to, like everybody wants the performance tire. You have basically lower aspect ratios. But Joe,
Ride quality changes quite a bit.
And what about the opportunity for this tire to hit an impact,
And
flex the sidewall, and damage the rim?
Absolutely.
So all those things need to be taken into consideration. Now, Joe, when you talk about heat, tread wear, those ratings, is that done by the government?
Yeah, it's government. The government required testing. It's the same testing for all manufacturers. So they use a controlled testing environment, and they'll test these tires for, again, both the tread wear. Traction would be how it grips in wet weather, and temperature is just how it reacts to. Let's say if you're driving a lot of high speed or you're towing something. You want a tire that will react well to high temperatures.
Well, we're going to have to ask you this question sooner.
There's a lot more into the tire,
yeah,
but those are your most important
I
things.
hate to ask this question, but brands are all brands. A lot of people have their favorites.
True.
Are all brands created equal?
No, they're not, of course.
So this one is a USA brand. This is made by Hoosier Tire.
Hoosier Tire, Radial GT.
Now, this tells me something. You had on your slide there, the name of the tire, Radial. GT generally tells me something.
A sport tire.
Yeah, a sportier tire. So when we're talking sport tire, are we talking about how aggressive the tread is, or what is the?
It could be the aggressive tread. It could be how well it'll handle in corners, how quickly it might stop. Again, it might have a softer compound, but again, that will deteriorate. That will have the tire not lasting quite as long,
Right.
and also, as you see here, a slightly different wear pattern on one side than the other side.
Yeah,
it'll tend to wear unevenly quicker if you have a car that has some, let's say, suspension problems or alignment
So Joe,
problems.
tell us what are the kinds of tires when you go shopping? What are the basic? Give us the basic rundown. I know GT Performance tires. They also sell them for with low profile, grippy handling tires that, like you say, they're probably for summer use. In fact, some of the manufacturers are calling them summer only.
Yeah, some are doing that, but you know, there's an all-season tire that most people should buy today. 90% of the people, 95% of the people will get along just fine with an all-season tire. It does well in the summer, it does well in wet weather, it does well in snow. It's not as good as a mud and snow quality tire, but it does everything well. And it's not like, if you remember back in the day, every fall you would change your snow, get the snow tires out in October, throw your snow tires on in the back, swap your tires.
It was a ritual.
That's all
if you
done.
lived in Michigan,
it's
we
just
did
what
it all
you
the time.
did.
Now people, if they have M&S or mud and snows on their car,
good all year
or
long.
they have all-season radials, there's really no need. Although some people would say to you, you know what, if I had summer tires, I definitely have to buy something like a Blizzak or some winter tire, and they do have two rims, two sets of rims.
Some people will do that. I wouldn't, but some people, if you want to buy two rims, great.
Well, it makes more sense than to dismount.
True.
And remount, rebalance, dismount,
the cost of doing that.
Because folks, I don't know if you've been to the tire shop, but just getting your tires mounted and balanced ain't cheap. It's the cost of a freaking tire. I mean, it's pretty expensive. So it might, if you are one of those people that want a specialty summer tire for your car or truck, and yet in the winter you want some really like a Zamboni tire so you don't slide around, I would suggest getting another set of less.
And you might be able to buy, if you have aluminum tires, aluminum wheels, you might be able to get a set of steel wheels just for the winter to get by in the winter. They're not very expensive, and then you'll have your two types of tires.
Well, now we wanted to show you one other thing here, folks. You know, we talked about reading your tires. You know, tires that go on your car, you're real happy with them. Some of them are noisier than others. I know my brother got a car and he drove it for a while. He said, I couldn't stand this brand tire, and he went out and bought a different brand, had a different tread pattern on the car, and of course, you know what? He was right. The tread pattern made a different sound. But there are a few things when you look at your tire, Joe, there's some telltale signs. Let's take a look at that. I know this one has a weird wear.
Yeah.
Could you bring a picture about a tire?
Yeah, I think there's one up on the screen. You can take a look at those tires.
Wow.
Of course, the new one's on the right. Now, the tire on the left tells me that there's either a suspension or a major alignment issue with that car. There's a clear case where the tire's ruined now. And even though there's a tread on the inside, you really can't drive on that tire. That's a very dangerous
Rotating,
tire.
it's not
That's
even
another thing where it's important to rotate your tires regularly because it'll minimize that out of balance wear.
It'll move it around.
When you check your tires, once a month you go out, you turn your wheels, to the side. Take a look at your tires. If you're starting to see that uneven wear, like it shows, not that bad, but if it's uneven at all, it will get worse. It's not going to get fixed by itself.
And if you're driving around and your tire looks like that, don't drive it anywhere but
And
right to the store.
That car is not stopping in the snow.
Yeah, that's bad
So
news.
if you have a car like that, take it to your shop. You have an alignment problem, or you might have a bad tie rod, a bad ball joint, something like that. But before you get your new tires, get the car fixed.
Yeah. Don't put new tires on a car that hasn't been aligned or hasn't been.
You're throwing money away.
And tires are so expensive these days, $100, $200, $300 a piece, that the money you put in your suspension will pay for itself because it won't wear out an $800 set of tires. You can also touch the tire, feel it if it's cupping, feathering. There's all kinds of ways to tell. You should know. Sometimes you just feel the tire. It'll have a shimmy in it. Maybe you hit a pothole and you got a bend in the rim. Pay attention to your car and visually look at it. And like you say, when you go to the oil change shop, for all practical purposes, it makes sense to rotate it every time.
Yeah.
It's not worth not rotating.
I mean, it's typically 6,000 to 8,000 miles, they say, get the tires rotated, and I think that's a good timing.
Number one thing, too, that we talk about inflation, and we're not talking about the economy.
Very important.
Yeah, the inflation on your tires, folks.
Read the manual.
Rumor is that 1 out of every 3 cars on the road has an underinflated tire, and at least one tire of their car is uninflated, which means we're not paying attention. We don't go to a service station anymore.
And it's not just an issue with tire wear, it's an issue with safety. It's stopping. Corners. You could blow a tire out if it's too low.
Yeah,
and today's tires typically are designed for a higher pressure, and you need to make sure your tires have whatever the pressure states on the door tag or the owner's manual.
Even if it costs a quarter at the gas station to fill your tires.
Fill it up.
Well, we're try to give you some really good tire advice. We're going to have more on tires again with Joe Babiasz. But right now, Joe, you know that it's time for one of my favorite sections on the whole show.
Yes.
It's called Pride in My Ride. And this is the part of the show where you send me a picture of your car and we put it on the air and tell the whole world about it. Joe, you brought in a great little subject for Pride in My Ride.
Yeah, this is a cool car. This is a pretty rare car. It's a 1972 Plymouth Roadrunner.
Oh, wow.
And it's owned by Dennis Wazorek of Lake Orion.
Wow.
He found it through a friend in Chelsea, Michigan. Dennis is the 3rd owner. And what's cool with this car is it's unrestored and it has 47,000 miles. Now he's done some minor, fixes to it, minor rust repairs, but it's basically an unrestored car. What makes this car rare is it's a 72 Roadrunner with a GTX package, one of 219 made that year. The base Roadrunner which gave it the 440 engine. The base Roadrunner in 72 had a 400 cubic inch motor. But if you ordered the GTX package, you got the 440. So the question, well, gee, why did they do that?
Yeah.
Well, the reason is they canceled the GTX for 72, but Chrysler found that they had a couple of extra 440 engines left.
There you go.
And they said, gee, we have to get rid of these motors. What are we going to do with them? All right, well, we'll release the GTX package for the Plymouth until our engines run out.
He's got one of those.
And he's got one of 219.
Well, thank you so much for sending that in. If you have pride in your ride and you want to put it on the air, send it to me, jclor@carsandcontext.com. But you know that's not all, Joe. Now it comes time for the favorite part of the show. We asked Lauren Parrott, Lauren, is it possible that Cars in Context has viewer mail?
I bet it does. I bet it does.
Oh, and you have some. Thank you so much, Lauren.
you, Lauren.
Lauren Parrott's got the latest in viewer mail. And guess what, folks? The first one's for you, Joe.
Okay. This one comes from Lisa M. of Grosse Pointe Farms, who watches Cars in Context on ATT Uverse Channel 99. She writes, I saw your show on car care and was wondering if you can offer suggestions on how to clean the haze off the car's plastic headlamp covers.
We were talking about that.
Mine are fogged up and are super expensive to replace.
Yes.
I saw a product that claims to remove the haze, but my neighbor says it doesn't work. Help.
Oh, Joe, we were just talking about this.
And it's a big problem.
Oh, it is.
Very big problem.
And maybe, you know, and I'm not saying that your neighbor's wrong, but some stuff works and some stuff doesn't. Joe, why don't we do this? To help out Lisa, why don't we try to do a show about this very, if that would help you folks. There is some stuff that they claims works and it doesn't, and there is a process that you can follow that actually does work.
Yes.
If that will help you folks, Joe, would you do that for us?
Be happy to do it, John.
All right,
yes.
we'll put that on our agenda. That's a really good question. Thanks for sending that in. I got one from Maureen M. in Grosse Pointe Farms, who watches us on Comcast Channel 915. You're in HD, Joe. This is, Dear John, I saw your Fair Trade show. Yeah, one of the most watched shows on Cars in Context TV on YouTube. And I've been telling my friends about why being built in America isn't the only thing to consider. Thank you, Maureen. You're right. But they saw something called American content, and they tell her that it's most important. Is that true? I know about the American content rule, and it's about the formula between parts and how much is built in America and the assembly in America, and they claim that becomes the most American thing. I can tell you this, folks, that is not the basis of how you gauge an American car. Here is the answer. Follow the money. Wherever the money goes, when the car is done and sold, no matter where the parts come from, who builds it, if the money goes across the ocean, it is not American. If it comes to America and stays here, it's an American car. American car companies don't export their wealth, they import wealth, no matter where they build their cars. So just remember that. We'll do another show on that too, I think.
Okay. Good idea.
But another great question, if you have a question for me, just send it in to Cars in Context, jclor@carsandcontext.com, and we'll put it on the air. Folks, we're out of time. Joe, we're out of time again. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure, John.
We did
Anytime.
talk some tires this time.
We did.
We'll be doing a lot of wonderful things to make sure that you stay on the road and keep your car rolling down the road next time. Until that time, remember that knowledge is power. I'm your host, John Clor. Thanks for watching.